Hello everyone, welcome back to Major Hi-Fi. I'm Luke. Today we're going to be talking about iFi's ZEN DAC V2. So iFi released the ZEN DAC, which was a digital audio converter slash headphone amp. The original ZEN DAC sits at $129, whereas this new one is at $159, so we have about a $30 price difference. Not huge, but definitely means that you are paying for a little bit extra. And this is an upgrade, so it's not a completely new amp, not a completely new DAC, it's just an upgrade of what already was, trying to make it even better. So I'd used the original ZEN DAC. I found it was good for giving clarity and transparency to headphones. It had a very consistent performance. I loved the true bass function, the low end boost that gave. And it overall just felt like a really solid amp for the price. So when they released an upgraded version of it, I was very curious to see what they were going to change and kind of what they felt needed to be improved upon from the last version. So here's the new ZEN DAC, the upgraded version 2, and here's the original. This one we've gotten early, it will be out in May. And as you can see, it looks just about the same as the original. It seems like it might be a slightly darker color. That might just be the lighting. I don't think that really matters. So we get the same cables with both of these. We get an RCA cable, and then we also get a USB cable, and then we also get this 1/4 inch converter. So these are both same build and look. They are matte black metal on the outside. They're pretty low profile, not gigantic, not super heavy, not meant to be this, ultra portable, like hold in the palm of your hand unit, but definitely something you could easily throw in any small bag and take somewhere if you wanted to. Doesn't take up a huge footprint on your desk, so it's definitely portable. So in terms of inputs and outputs, we have a headphone section in the front and a line section in the back. So the headphone section contains a single-ended 6.3mm output and a balanced 4.4mm analog output. On the back, we have a second balanced 4.4mm analog output, and this is more for active speakers or amplifiers. And then we also get a RCA analog output, along with a USB audio and power input and a DC 5-volt power input. So the 4.4mm analog outputs are definitely not something you see as often at this price range. And of course, the 6.3mm output is fairly standard. So for the price, you're definitely getting a good number of inputs and outputs, and I think the 4.4mm is a nice addition. And some people have said that they think the 4.4 sounds better. That's very subjective, up to you. I didn't notice a difference, but some people do. So on the front, we have a power match button, and the high setting on this is geared more towards over-ear headphones, namely those that are harder to drive. And the low setting is more geared towards IEMs or any more sensitive headphone. And then we get the true bass button, which is an analog circuit that is supposed to compensate for any headphones that have inadequate bass response, or maybe they do have adequate bass response and you just want more. Finally, on the back, we have a variable/fixed switch, and this either enables or disables the volume control on your ZEN DAC and is for the line outputs. So what we see on the outside and the functions, inputs and outputs we get are the same on both units. When we look inside the units, that's where the differences mainly are. So on the original ZEN DAC, we have an 8-core XMOS, I don't know if there's a correct way to say that. We have an 8-core chip, and on the version 2, we have a 16-core chip. So you're getting double the cores, and this is supposed to help upgrade memory, processing power, and clock speed, and make it an overall more efficient and just better quality unit. We also have a low jitter crystal clock, which is supposed to provide over 20 decibels of improved performance. So this super low jitter clock is supposed to give the ZEN DAC version 2 a lower noise performance and allow it to stay quiet even in noisy situations. On their website they list a yacht or an RV, so I guess if you want to take your ZEN DAC dragster racing or on your motorcycle with you, you'll be good to go. Finally, one pretty major difference is that the original ZEN DAC is an MQA renderer. The updated, upgraded ZEN DAC is an MQA decoder. So basically what this means is if your source does not decode MQA already. So I think Tidal, for example, does decode MQA, but not all devices do, not all services do. So if you have MQA files that are not being decoded by your source, then with the original Zen DAC, you're kind of out of luck. It'll render it, but it won't decode it. If you have the upgraded version 2, you have the decoder built into the Zen DAC, and that gives you a bit more versatility in terms of the sources you can use. So those are the technical differences between the two units, and that is mainly what you're getting here. They're not trying to totally reinvent it, to totally rebuild it. If they wanted to, I'm sure they would have released a new product. There's a reason that they made this an upgraded version of an already existing product. It's still called the Zen DAC. And like we saw, they look the exact same. The only difference is that on the back, in small writing, it says Zen DAC V2 on the new version. But these differences aren't nothing, and there's a reason that they made a new product. If they were very pointless, I don't think they would have done that. So I'm going to talk about the sound quality, and in terms of the differences between the two in sound quality, it's going to be very subtle. Already, amplifiers and DACs, their effects on sound are very, very subjective. I mean, all sound is subjective, but with this, it's another level of subtlety and nuance. All amps sort of lie on a spectrum between clarity and color. Some of them want to be very transparent. I mean, transparency is kind of always a goal to an extent when making a DAC/amp, but some of them definitely want to have a bit more color. That's what you're buying it for, and some of them you're buying for the lack of color. And I know the Zen DAC is definitely geared towards transparency. So I was looking for that, but also if there's a little bit of coloring, that doesn't have to be a bad thing generally. I was trying to decide while I listened to it, when I did notice slight differences in sound between, say, your laptop's DAC or whatnot, or a normal audio interface DAC, I was trying to decide if the Zen DAC was actually coloring the sound or if it was offering me so much clarity that the sound just felt a little bit different because I'm not used to hearing it with that much clarity, or because side by side compared to a normal interface or headphone DAC, you're getting less clarity, and so when you hear it with more, the sound does almost come across as colored, but it's actually just more honest and translating the sound in a much less interrupted way. So I'm not going to go through the trouble of trying to decide what differences in sound are due to coloring and which ones are due to clarity, because it's impossible to know, but I will tell you what sounded different. And you can judge for yourself what you think came from where. I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, it just matters how it sounds, right? And then of course, obviously, power output is another goal of DACs and amps, often why you need to buy one. And so I'll be commenting on that too. So like I said, sound quality, sound signature, what differences, where, it's hard to say. But I will say this, in terms of sound quality, with either of these, and especially with the Zen DAC version 2, you're going to notice an upgrade in sound quality, as you should. In terms of sound signature, sound coloring, will you notice a difference? I can't guarantee you that you will or you won't. I notice some differences, I know some people don't. It depends on your sensitivity and your perception and all those things. It's extremely nuanced, extremely subtle. But to some people, these differences mean more than others, obviously. So I'm going to speak on my experience with the Zen DAC version 2, and then I'll touch a little bit on how I thought it differed from the Zen DAC version 1. Some of the headphones I used to test this out with were the Beyerdynamic DT 1990 Pro, the Focal Celeste, the Hi-Fi Man Sandara, and the Dan Clark Audio Aeon Flow 2 Open Back. Let me touch on some specifics, some different songs, audio, whatnot. On the DT 1990, I listened to Blow Away by Kate Bush. Love me some Kate Bush, very much so. And this song has a lot of guitar plucks and piano riffs and sort of shiny details and shimmering sounds on the outer part of the stereo field. And I found that when listening through the Zen DAC, I felt it was much more clear and easy to pick these sounds out and to feel like they had space to breathe, so the imaging just felt a lot more organized. It overall felt like the DT 1990 Pro became more comfortable in detail retrieval when I was running it through this amp. It's definitely a great headphone with or without an amp, but this gave it kind of the high quality that it deserved, that extra push forward. I also listened to Bloom by Ravina. Highly suggest checking her out. Great R&B artist. Her mixes are always really incredible and translate beautifully, and are a great test of detailing and crispness and cleanliness and sound, because that's how they're supposed to sound. And so on the Zen DAC V2, I found the layering to be much more balanced and vivid. The sound felt less cluttered, more organized. These are all things you should be getting when you're listening to a high quality audio file being translated in full and properly. I also listened to both of these songs at differing qualities, so I went down to like 320 kilobits per second MP3, and it still translated it very well. Of course, if you go to MQA, it's going to sound better, but even without being MQA, it still did a good job. It still did the song very good justice. Both the DT1990 and the Celeste felt like the harder edges of their sound had kind of been smoothed out and cut down a size, once again, very subtly. The sound just felt a little bit more groomed and purified, especially in terms of sharper high mids and highs, which is, I think, where higher quality audio really helps you out, especially when it's being translated and delivered properly. I felt like these had a little bit more smoothness and purity in that area of the frequency spectrum. They're both really good headphones overall, but that's my main problem with both of these, is they can occasionally be a little bit sharp in that area, not terribly, but this gave them just a little bit of extra warmth there that I appreciated, and kind of taking that home and making it a little bit more cohesive and solid sounding. On all of these fronts with imaging and warmth and whatnot, I found that the Zen DAC V2 seemed to slightly outperform the original, as you would hope it would. I figured this was due to the more optimal processing power. After all, we do have double the cores. So in terms of noticing really any major sound color or signature differences with the Aeon Flow 2 open back or the Sandara, it was even more subtle. I listened to Cleo Soul's Perfect Blue, and the sort of jazzy percussion felt cleaned up a bit, tightened a little bit, and a little bit less harsh overall. The treble on both headphones felt like it had a little bit more cleanliness and clearness to it, as you often get with a good headphone amp. The Aeon is definitely a harder to drive headphone, which is why I tested it with this, and it definitely did need the power match button, but once I turned that on, I didn't have to turn the volume up high at all. And for every headphone I used, I never needed to put the volume dial past the halfway point, and it was usually a bit below that actually. So as for the true bass function, we saw this on both the original Zen DAC and the upgraded Zen DAC. So the bass boost that this offers is the real deal. It is not messing around, it's not subtle, it is definitely there, it is not nuanced, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It's like, they're not just giving you this wimpy kind of like could do without it bass boost. It basically really adds a new character to your headphones. It's not going to be for every headphone or every song, because it is a bit more pronounced than maybe other bass boosts you get on amps. But I found that it was very satisfying, and that when I did need it, it felt like super gratifying to add to the sound. I kind of ended up using it for long periods of time, and then I would realize how long I had it on for, and I'd be like, okay, I should try turning off the true bass, and so I would, and it kind of felt like stepping out of like a warm shower or a warm hot tub into really cold air, where you're just like, no, and you get back in. Because I just turned it right back on immediately afterwards, because my ears were just so adjusted to it, I guess, but also it just sounded so much better. I remember I was listening to Haunted by Beyonce. I haven't listened to Beyonce for anything audiophile related in a long time, but I really should more, because her songs are incredibly well produced and well arranged and well written. It's Beyonce. But anyways, I was listening to Haunted by Beyonce, which has incredibly amazing drums in it. And this was on the Focal Celeste. And I turned on the true bass function when listening to this song about like halfway through, and I just remember being blown away. It was one of those spiritual sound experiences where you're just like, oh my God, yes, this is so enjoyable. Just like sit back and close your eyes and kind of just let the sound come and wrap around you and feel amazing. So I loved that, loved the true bass function. It's a really well executed manicured bass sound. You really don't get much bleeding to the low mid. It's pretty tight. I've heard tighter bass boosts, but I think I like a little bit of looseness. But yeah, I've seen a lot of comments and reviews of the original Zen DAC that were saying like, finally a bass boost that actually does what it says it's going to, and I agree with that. So yeah, this was one of the most attractive functions for the original Zen DAC to me. At times I felt like the version 2 maybe had a little bit cleaner of a bass boost, and I mean by a hair, but a hair nonetheless. Once again, this could be due to the higher processing power, hard to say. But yeah, so I really enjoyed the function on the original Zen DAC, and on the version 2, I enjoyed it just as much. So for the Zen DAC version 2, if you want transparency with some light cleansing and arguably a few drops of sound coloring, then this is a great amp for that, and it's also a great price. In terms of the difference between the original and the new one, they are small. I'm not going to pretend that they did an overhaul on the unit, but I don't think that that's what they're trying to tell you they did. It's a fine-tuning, it's an upgrade of the original. So it does have more versatility being an MQA decoder instead of just a renderer, and it does have double the processing power, and we do have a low jitter. If you're thinking about getting one or the other, the price difference is not crazy big. If 129 is your hard cutoff, then I guess you're gonna just have to get the original Zen DAC. But if you're willing to pay the extra 30, I say why not? Why not get the best version of something if you can afford it? It's not a crazy upgrade, but it is better. It's a perfected version of the original. And I also wanted to say that I think it's really cool that iFi was willing to kind of circle back to an old product and release an updated version of it, because they easily could have just made a new headphone amp and put all the same things from the Zen DAC with those 3 changes, and then just sold it as a new unit and been like, you need this one. But instead they're like, no, it's the same thing, but we made it better. And I appreciate the honesty of just saying, you know what, we wanted to kind of clean up a few parts that we feel like we could have done better the first time around. And give it to you for just a little bit extra money. I don't really mind that. I think that makes sense. And I think that for some people, this will be really great to see, especially people who either wanted a Zen DAC but maybe had some reservations related to the things that were upgraded, or maybe there are people that already have the original Zen DAC and really want these upgrades. If you already have the original Zen DAC, maybe you don't need the upgraded version. But some people who do have the original might feel like the things that are upgraded here are very important to them, and that they love the original Zen DAC and they just want the best possible version of it. So maybe if the Zen DAC is your go-to favorite amp right now, maybe you just want to get the updated version, because if you love it so much, you might as well get the best possible version of it, right? All right, if you want to know more about this, I also wrote an article on the Major Hi-Fi blog. I'll link that below. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer. I'll be back soon to do some more reviews, and until then, happy listening.